The summer of 1993 in Charleston had the scent of magnolias and infinite promises. Emma Mitchell, with her 22 years and honey-colored eyes, worked as a volunteer at the community hospital, where she met James Parker, a young resident doctor with a smile that lit up entire hallways and dreams of making a difference in the world. They fell in love completely, dangerously, without fear of consequences. James saw in her not just beauty, but strength, intelligence, and compassion. They talked for hours about medicine, about faith, about how to heal not just bodies, but souls. Emma enrolled in nursing school, inspired by him, dreaming of a future where they would work side by side saving lives. "You have healing hands," Emma James would say, holding her fingers between his, hands that were made to bring comfort. That magical summer, they made plans. They would marry as soon as Emma graduated. They would have 3 children, a house with a porch. James promised they would build a life dedicated to service, guided by faith and love. But in September, everything changed. James began having terrible headaches, dizziness, memory lapses. When he finally got tests done, the diagnosis fell like a sentence. Aggressive brain tumor. Inoperable. 6 months, maybe a year. Emma held James's hand in the oncologist's cold room and felt her world crumble. But it was he who whispered, "We have time, Emma. Let's use every second." Little did they know that fate had other plans, plans that would test their love in unimaginable ways. What Emma discovered in the following weeks would change everything. Continue reading. 3 weeks after the diagnosis, Emma began feeling morning sickness. When the symptoms persisted, she took a test. 2 blue lines. She was pregnant. Tears of joy and despair mixed on her face. A baby. James's child, a blessing in the cruelest possible moment. She ran to tell him, imagining the news would bring light to his eyes that were beginning to lose their shine. But when Emma opened the door to James's room that afternoon, she found not just him, but his parents, Elizabeth and Robert Parker. The conversation she heard froze her in place. "Son, you need to think about Emma," Elizabeth was saying. "She's young. She has her whole life ahead of her. If you marry now, she'll be a widow at 23. It will be too heavy a burden. You love Emma," Robert added. "So set her free. Let her live. Don't tie her to a painful memory." James was sobbing. "I love her more than my own life. How can I let her go?" "Precisely because of that," Elizabeth murmured. "True love liberates. James, it doesn't imprison." Emma stepped back, the pregnancy test burning in her pocket. That night, she placed her hand on her belly and made a promise. "You will have a life. I give thee life, and your father will die in peace, without guilt, without burden." The next day, Emma sought out James with a forced smile and lied for the first time. "James, I've thought a lot about us. Your parents are right. We're too young. I can't do this. Watch you like this. It's too much." James's eyes filled with tears, but there was also relief. "I understand. I will always love you, Emma. Always." "Me too," she replied, her heart breaking. "But I need to move forward." Emma never returned. James died 4 months later, believing he had released Emma to a happy life. He never knew he was leaving a child behind. Emma moved to Boston. There, alone and heartbroken, she gave birth to a blue-eyed girl. She named her Grace, unexpected grace amid pain. But raising a daughter alone while keeping the secret would exact a high price. Emma built a life in Boston, working double shifts to support Grace. She told her daughter that her father had been a wonderful doctor who died young. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth. Grace grew up beautiful, intelligent, curious, a perfect combination of Emma and James. The years passed like pages of a sad book. Emma devoted herself to nursing with fervor. Specializing in palliative care, each terminal patient was a way of caring for James retroactively, of honoring his memory through service. "Why did you never marry again, Mom?" Grace would ask. "Some loves occupy all the space in the heart," Emma would reply. "There's no room left for others." When Grace turned 18, she announced she wanted to study medicine. The irony was cruel and perfect. Her daughter would follow in the footsteps of the father she never knew. When Grace was accepted to the Medical University of South Carolina, in Charleston, Emma felt destiny closing in a circle. "It has one of the best oncology specializations in the country. Mom, I want to study cancer. I want to help people, like my father was helped. Emma couldn't deny her daughter's dream without revealing the truth. With a heavy heart, she helped Grace move and return to Charleston after 30 years. On the last day before returning to Boston, Emma couldn't resist. She went to the cemetery where James was buried the first time in 30 years. She knelt before the headstone Dr. James Parker, 1971 to 1994. He healed with love. "Forgive me, James," she whispered. "I thought I was doing the right thing. But our daughter, our Grace, she's so much like you, and she'll never know." Emma didn't realize she wasn't alone. An elderly woman was watching from a distance. When Emma stood up, the woman approached. "Did you know my son?" Elizabeth Parker asked. Emma's world stopped. James's mother. Emma opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Elizabeth looked deeply into Emma's eyes. "You're Emma Mitchell, aren't you? I never forgot your eyes." What happened next would reveal secrets that would change 3 generations. Emma couldn't lie. Not there. Not in front of James's grave. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, it's me." Elizabeth studied Emma's face. "All these years I've carried the guilt. I was the one who convinced James to let you go. I thought I was protecting you, but I took away your chance to say goodbye properly." "You tried to do your best," Emma said softly. "We all tried." "There's something more, isn't there?" Elizabeth asked, sensing something in Emma's voice. "Something you're not telling me?" Emma felt the walls she had built for 30 years begin to crack. She looked at the grave and made a decision. Maybe it was time to release the weight. "I was pregnant," Emma confessed, her voice breaking. "When you talked with James, I was pregnant. But I didn't tell him. I wanted him to die in peace, without guilt about leaving us." Elizabeth staggered, and Emma held her arm. "A baby? You had James's baby? A girl." "Grace, she's 29 years old, and she just moved to Charleston. She's starting her residency in oncology. She never knew who her father really was." Elizabeth sat down trembling. "A granddaughter. I've had a granddaughter for 29 years and never knew. Robert died without knowing he had a granddaughter. My James left a daughter in the world and departed without knowing." "I thought I was doing the right thing," Emma repeated, "but I only created different kinds of pain." The 2 women cried together over James's grave. "You need to tell her." Elizabeth finally said, "Grace deserves to know her father's family. What if she hates me for hiding this? Then she process that pain and find forgiveness." Elizabeth replied, "But you can't carry this secret to the grave, Emma." That afternoon, Emma called Grace. "There's something important I need to tell you, dear, something I should have told you long ago." Grace caught the first flight back to Boston, and when she arrived, she found not just Emma waiting, but an elderly lady with the same blue eyes she saw in the mirror. What Grace discovered that day would change her life forever. Grace sat in the living room, looking alternately at her mother and the stranger. Emma held her daughter's hand, took a deep breath, and began to tell the story she had kept for 30 years. She told about James in vivid detail, their love, their plans, the devastating diagnosis. She told about the conversation she overheard, about the impossible decision she made. She told why she lied, why she ran away, why she kept the secret. Grace listened in silence, tears streaming as the puzzle of her life fell into place. Why her mother never married. Why there was always sadness in her eyes. Why she became strange when Grace chose medicine, oncology, Charleston. "You robbed me of my father," Grace finally said, her voice full of pain. "Robbed me of my grandmother. Robbed me of an entire family." Emma accepted the words as deserved. "I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life regretting it. But at the time, I genuinely believed I was doing the right thing. I wanted him to die in peace. But what about me? I had the right to know." "You did," Emma agreed. "And I apologize. But despite all my wrong choices, one thing was never a lie. You were loved too much. Your father loved you, even before he knew you existed." Elizabeth approached Grace cautiously. "Child, I look at you and see my son. Your eyes, your smile, even the way you tilt your head. You're the part of him that continued, and I've wasted almost 30 years without knowing you." Grace looked at her grandmother, seeing in her a connection to the father she never had. "Tell me about him. Please, tell me everything. I want to know my father." They spent the whole night talking. Elizabeth brought photos, letters, James's personal belongings. Grace saw her father for the first time, not through vague descriptions, but through real images, real stories, real love. She saw photos of him in medical school, in his white coat, holding babies, smiling. He wanted to save the world. James had a heart bigger than himself. Just like you, Emma added. You inherited his heart, dear. That's why you chose medicine. His DNA runs through your veins. His compassion lives in you. Grace cried in the arms of a mother and grandmother, processing 30 years of hidden truths. The pain was real, but there was also something more, a sense of completeness. In the following months, the healing was slow but steady. Elizabeth became a constant presence in Grace's life, taking her to places where James grew up, introducing her to people who knew him. Emma visited whenever she could, rebuilding trust with her daughter. The wounds didn't disappear overnight, but Grace began to understand that her mother had made an impossible decision in impossible circumstances. "Mom," Grace said one day, 6 months after the revelation, "I forgive you. Not because what you did was right, but because I understand that love sometimes makes us make imperfect decisions. You paid the price for it for 30 years. It's time for you to forgive yourself too." Emma hugged her daughter, sobbing, feeling a weight she had carried for decades finally lift. A year later, on a sunny spring morning, 3 women, Emma, Grace, and Elizabeth, stood before James's grave. Grace held a framed diploma, her complete certification in oncology, achieved with honors. "I did it, Dad," she whispered, touching the headstone. "I became the doctor you never had the chance to fully be. And with every patient I help, I'll be honoring you." Emma placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. "He would be so proud of you, Grace." Elizabeth smiled through tears. "He lives in you, child. With every life you save, my James continues healing. His love continues through you." Grace stood up and hugged both women. "We are survivors. Survivors of loss, of secrets, of pain. But we're also witnesses that true love never dies. It just transforms, finds new paths." As they walked together away from the cemetery, the sun illuminated the path ahead. Behind them, magnolias bloomed, beautiful, resilient, eternal. Just like the love that had connected for generations, just like the hope that springs even from the ashes of the deepest pain. Emma looked back one last time. "I released our secret, James, and in doing so, I freed myself. Grace knows you now, and the world will continue knowing you through her. Your love was not in vain." And for the first time in 30 years, Emma smiled a complete, genuine, free smile, the smile of someone who finally made peace with the past and was ready to embrace the future. Because true redemption isn't in never making mistakes, but in having the courage to confront them and move forward with a wiser heart. And in this, Emma, Grace, and Elizabeth were masters. 5 years later, the James Parker Pediatric Oncology Wing was inaugurated at the hospital where he had worked. Grace, now a respected oncologist, cut the ribbon alongside her mother and grandmother. James's legacy finally received the recognition it deserved, not through plaques, but through lives saved, hopes renewed. Emma works as a volunteer in the same wing, holding hands of frightened parents, offering comfort that only those who have known deep loss can offer. Elizabeth visits regularly, sharing stories of James with young patients. And Grace, she found love, married, and gave birth to a boy they named James, so the name would continue. When she holds her son, she looks into his blue eyes and whispers, "You carry the name of a great man. Your grandfather was a hero." The secret Emma kept for 30 years almost destroyed relationships, but when revealed, it brought not just pain, but also healing. Because the truth, however difficult it may be, always liberates. And love, however tested it may be, always finds a way back home. This story teaches us that our choices, even those made with the best intentions, carry consequences. But it also reminds us that it's never too late for truth, never too late for forgiveness, and never too late to start over. The legacy of true love isn't in living without mistakes, but in having the courage to correct them and transform pain into purpose, loss into legacy.